Got the St John's Bar at 6 o'clock on Saturday night for 16. Very good. Yeah.
Nice day.
It is, yeah. We got kicked out of there once.
I think we might be online.
Yeah. Oh, right. Welcome everyone along to our first meeting for 2024. Everyone had a nice new year and everyone behaved themselves. Had trouble, Stu?
Be by 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very well behaved. Right. Call for apologies. Mark Harris. Mark Harris. Can someone move that apology, please? Mark Harris. Second it. Second. And Helm, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Thank you. But, so we have no public forum, no speakers. So I'd just like members to stand for the death of Ian, commonly known as Bones McEwen. Thank you very much. Just called Bones because that's when you act as a kid. You used to give them bones, you draw around so guys, someone move the minutes of the last meeting as a true and correct record, please. Becky, second that. Yeah. With Duncan, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Very thank you. My members, if they feel they have a conflict of interest in anything that is discussed, please say so. Oh, who's going first, Peter or Wayne? Peter.
Kia ora, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, I am zooming in from Christchurch, sunny Christchurch, but quite windy. But look, so I'll kick this off. We're up to obviously the delegations discussion. And you've seen the paper. I dare say you are interested in its contents and will have some questions. And you may have already seen some of the correspondence or some of the traffic that's flying as a result of our meeting in Vincent and in Cromwell. But I guess what I can say, and I said it at those meetings, I'm not sure that as a council we have reviewed the manual of delegations as it refers to the community boards and the delegated authorities, which we know is quite extensive for our community boards. And I think it's an opportune time following the triennium and now as we look partway through the LTP process to really have a think about this and say, are these delegations still fit for purpose? They probably haven't changed in the history of Central Otago District Council standing up in any significant way. And we think that now's the time actually to have a think about this and say, are they appropriate going forward? Are they still fit for purpose? And do they align with the legislative requirements that our councillors must act under? And so it's with all that sort of as a background that we are discussing this with the community boards, because under our register of delegations, it says if the council wishes to change the process, then it obviously needs to consult with the community boards. And what I would add is this discussion and this paper is purely about the delegations to the community boards. It's not about what subsequent decisions would be made, whether the council agreed to or not agreed to make amendments to those delegations. If a decision was to made to amend the delegations, then subsequent decisions came before council that were normally the purview of a community board previously, then those sorts of reports would have to go through the significance engagement policy and determine whether they should be consulted with communities and the like. So I wouldn't want to conflate the two at this point in time. It purely is about where is the decision making best held in council. The role of the community boards will not change regardless of the decision that council must make. That role is enshrined in law and it is still part of the delegations right at the front end. And so there is still a clear purpose for the community boards, regardless of whatever decision is taken by council when a paper comes before council. So I wouldn't want to erode the value of the community boards. Community boards are the eyes and ears into the communities. you live there, you know the communities. The council will still need the insights and the advocacy from the community board, so that won't change. All we're looking at is saying is the decision making that is currently in place and that's been delegated, is it still appropriate for it to be delegated to the community boards? The answer may be yes, it is, but all we're doing is testing that and having a discussion about it.
Can I add a bit, Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
Thank you. Look, I support this path, and I think primarily Peter's pointed out very correctly. Neil Gillespie has been with the council longer, or as long as anyone can't remember us reviewing it, so I think we're safe to say that it hasn't, since the council was formed, had a substantive review. It's not just the fact that it's been 30 years since we've looked at it, but it's also that the ground has changed underneath us significantly in two ways. Firstly, it's no secret that no matter what we do, we're going out with a massive rates rise this year. And secondly, we have debt, which we haven't had to deal with before, and it's getting bigger. So the reason behind looking at whether we're going to do this or not is there are some decisions that boards are currently able to make themselves that don't have an adequate overview by the bank, basically being the council. So if a board was to be making a decision that was going to put that board into significant debt, that has to be portrayed alongside the rest of the council's debt situation, because we know what we've got coming up around the rest of the district, and into the future, which the boards may not be privy to. So those are the two things that have significantly changed. In the 7.5 years I've been mayor, I've talked to pretty much every other mayor in the country. There is no council that comes close to the delegated authorities that I've ever struck that CODC has. We have been described by one leader in the field as a federation of 4 wards, not a district council, which was a pretty telling sort of a thing to have said. That was said to me in 2017, and it's lingered with me since. We are 26,000 people spread over 10,000 square kilometres, and I think there is sometimes still a wee bit of a bunker mentality in the overview that the council should be having. As Neil Gillespie said in the Cromwell meeting where we discussed this 2 days ago, dare I say it, has been some rubber stamping. So we need a bit of a tighter grip, particularly in the debt situation. The other aspect of this too, though, is I've looked at this as an opportunity as mayor to say, how can we do better? How can we get better out of our boards? And I think the habits that we've got into are that the boards have their lane and the council have their lane. And as a consequence, the council probably isn't getting fed up as much information from the grassroots as we could, or perhaps as we should. And I'm a massive believer in the principle of subsidiarity, which is a big word, which basically means you're going to get the best knowledge, information and result by listening to the people who are closest to the effects of that decision. So I've looked at a structure that if we move ahead through this, I would put into place. And if I can describe 4 different types of papers that boards would currently potentially get in front of them. One is you would have papers on street naming and grants. And that would stay the same as it is now. You, within council policy, would say, this is it, and that's the end of it. And the only council policy that I can think of with road naming is we don't have two roads the same name. And if you wanted to perhaps name a road out here in honour of a community citizen, and there's another one in Cromwell, where you could request that the council ignore its own policy, which we can, but the board can't. And I'd sort of be saying you're 120 kilometres away, why would you worry about it? But then there's the second type of paper, and they're the ones that you currently have the say over, halls, museums, cemeteries, things like that, that you now make the decisions. And obviously halls and museums are something that are, you know, potentially at the moment going to cost a lot of money across the district. And that's why we need to be having an overview of all that spending. And things like that, you wouldn't be saying, here's what's happening. You'll be saying, this is our recommendation to council. So there's that change. That's the significant change. As a mayor, I would be very, very closely listening to what the board had to say, and would have to be hearing some extremely good reasons why we wouldn't be doing what the board had to say, but the end result would be the council saying, here's what we think. It does take a bit of pressure too off the one councillor that the smaller boards have, who sometimes just has to carry a lot more weight than the 4 of the 5 councillors from Cromwell and local things like that. Then there's the third type, and the third and fourth type are quite similar, but they're papers that no that they don't come in front of the board and that I really believe at times should. And there's one that I'm going to talk about in our members report, in the mayor's report, that I won't go into now because I know that the conversation will go off on a tangent if I do. But it is a paper that's coming before council on the 31st of January that as mayor, I will want to know, and I do want to know what the board's thought is, because one tiny bit of it is particular to the Maniototo and is quite important to the Maniototo and the people here. We don't have a structure at the moment that says decisions that are just based in one ward, we will always get the board's view. And I think we always should. So the view, part of the delegation says the board can advocate to council on any other matters that the board resolves to do so. Well, you'd be asked in those cases unless there was urgency, and then you might be asked to do a quick Zoom at night to see what you think. Then there's the other papers that are not ward-based but cover the whole district. We should still be hearing from the boards. And the LTP is the classic example. We will hear from the boards on things about their LTP. And I'm taking my mind back to the last LTP in the Maniototo, and I don't think there was a particularly big board-specific thing. So I can't give you an example, but what happens is, because of that, I don't believe we got the board's view on the whole thing. Now, in this LTP that's coming, we've got these big rates rises, and the board may want to say to the council, hey, our people are saying to us, that's too much. That door will be made open and you'll be invited very strongly to walk through it on any paper. The other thing that I am looking at bringing in is a monthly board chairs report to council, which will be on the agenda, and it will simply be a matter of the board chair fronting up, be it by Teams or in person, to say, here's what's going on around the board table, here's what's going on in my community. It would mean once every quarter there's an automatic opportunity for Robert to sit in front of the council and say, hey, people are getting fairly grumpy about the length of the bushes on the side of the road, you know, the broom's getting a bit big. Now, at the moment, he'll say that to Peter, he might say it in this room, but there's 9 councillors don't hear it. And maybe they do need to hear that, maybe they don't, but in the overall realm of the district, it is important because they'll start to hear a flavour of the grassroots stuff coming up. If something urgent is coming at a board, then they can jump the queue and we'll have 2 board chairs in the one day. So as I say, I look at this as an opportunity. I know that we've been through 2 boards already. One's not too troubled, the other one's feeling a bit that they want some more time to think about it. But I think it's going to put us in a better place going into the future, which really is what this job's all about. So thank you.
You anything to say? Very quiet.
Oh, not really. I mean, we don't have a lot of delegation
No.
here. And I hope that we do get our say up in Alexandra, but we are one council. And some of the best things we can have in this council is others functioning really well. And I don't believe in silos and everyone being really too cliquey. And it makes from electing good elected members to make good decisions for the council, which we have some really good members. I think it's, I've got no problem with it. I know that some that will have, but I do think, and like Tim says, as long as we have a clear reporting chain to council, and if we have community board meetings and staff are here, or we take it back, it is minuted, so it shouldn't get back there. But we'll put a lot of pressure on the council to make sure they do listen to the community board saying, because otherwise, if you don't feel like you're having a say, it'll feel like the community board's getting watered down, and you get poor decision making. So I think we have been, as well, I hope we have been heard from the Times of Mike down and Barry Beacon South. Our point of view definitely might not be what some of the councillors or staff want to hear, but it does get told. So I think we won't be disadvantaged here because we do have a say, we do get listened to, and we haven't got any major issues other than our bridging, which is a part of a lot of, you know, they're only parts of a council issue that we have like other places. And in a lot of ways we could benefit from it because, so, yeah.
So, in effect, would we get less reports coming to us?
Potentially you get more, slightly more, but what you would get is, and again, I won't reference the one I've got coming that I'll talk about in my mayor's report shortly, but you would have that report come in front of you. It's exactly the same as council, and it would just simply say, what do you think about that line? So it's not gonna, I'm not wanting to increase the workload or make us less efficient. but there will be some of the things at the moment that are board specific. I'll give you an example in real life. You may remember in 2017, there was quite a ruckus with the Cromwell Community Board. And that was because the council voted on whether or not to increase the number of aircraft hangars at the Cromwell Aerodrome. We didn't ask the board beforehand. Now, the council was entirely right under the delegations not to, because aerodromes are not delegated to community boards. But in my view, we were entirely wrong that we didn't get the board view beforehand, because that's going to be the community view coming up. And it caused a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of damage. Under the system that I'm proposing, which would tie in with this, that council paper would have come before the Cromwell Community Board, before it came before the council, and said, hey, what do you think? And what that means for you guys is if that does come up, instead of Stu saying, well, I reckon the board would think, it's going to be the board talked about this and the board felt, and if it was big enough, you'll be on Zoom or coming up to us, Robert, be saying, hey, the board have asked me to come and speak to this because such and such. But I think that's golden, and it's worth a little bit extra that it'll be.
Now, the only thing I see about, we get reports, but you'll get, Louise will come all the way from Alexei and she'll speak to us for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas we could get a report on it and we could read it and get more reports maybe like that, rather than having staff drive for 2 hours and they talk for 10 minutes.
We've got to be careful that we don't. I mean, I think it's important that staff come out here because they can be doing other jobs and doing other things and meeting other people with staff. We've got to make sure that we feel we have our say.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm saying you get a lot of people, a lot of staff will come out here and they'll talk to us for 2 minutes at the table about something that can be sent to us. And we can talk about it and make a decision.
I tend to agree with Stu though, and the reason for that is that it amazes me the number of times, particularly here in the Tevia, where something will come up in the conversation. It might even be in the cup of tea room beforehand. You go, actually, where's Louise? Oh, Louise, such and such. And generally speaking, you know, there will be something looked at while you're out here, or so forth. But I don't know whether you want to speak to that QT or Peter. Actually, the CEO's online, of course.
Yeah, of course, it is important that staff are seen. And so, I mean, I would be there today if I wasn't at a tangi, and we will continue to be represented at the community boards, because it's important as elected officials that you can speak directly to the key staff and make your points, and we can hear it directly from your mouths, what you're saying, so we can act on that.
Yep, no, it was just a comment. I thought if we're going to get more reports, do we actually have someone sitting there for 2 minutes rather than getting a report we can read, and then we get them on Zoom and we can just flip them up on Zoom and ask them questions. You know, there's nothing wrong with this. We can talk to Peter and he can talk to us.
Yeah, and I do think, Mr. Chair, that as we, depending on what decision comes out of council at the end of February, and if they were to choose to decide to amend the delegations, I think there'll be a bit of feeling our way through this process, because it will be different. And so we are proposing probably in a year's time that we would do a review to make sure it's still fit for purpose. Does it need to be tweaked? And I think after a year, we'd probably bed it down a lot better, and we'd all be, more comfortable with what's coming up in front of the community board and where decisions set and so on and so on. So I think there'll be a little bit of testing and feeling our way through this.
Becky.
Yeah.
Questions?
Thoughts? Oh, yeah. The only concern I would have is just to make sure we still have a voice, like that we still feel like we're being heard, which I'm sure we would be. I'd like to, but
And I guess on the other side, if you look at some of the big businesses, some of them it's too big for community boards with the experience some of them have got because of big decisions. And probably that's where Cromwell, it's a big business goes on up there.
Yeah.
And really it's ultimately the council has a say, but not involved in some of the decision making that you say could come along. And you've only got to have lights of a hall jumps up $5 million or something that has a massive effect. If it's distributised on halls, that's on us as well, or water schemes or whatever. So ultimately, I think it's a good thing. I've been onto it a bit for a while. But it doesn't really affect us here as much because we don't have to administer as much. It will affect the others more than us.
Don't get me wrong, I think it's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Like I say, Peter says tweaking it in a year's time, probably going to be a major thing like the whole thing. Duncan?
Like everyone said, I think as long as we know that we can get them listened to.
I think we get listened to
Yeah,
quite well.
Yeah, won't it?
But if this improves the way we listen to,
Yeah.
which sounds like that's going to head to, that would be a very good idea.
Yeah.
As they say, in a year's time, we're going to change it a little bit, aren't you? There's no way it will stay exactly the same, but it will get changed.
And in a lot of ways, being in our distance and having the knowledge we've got of our community sometimes can be very helpful for council. Because we're not standing in the mucky.
Yeah.
You know, we are away going, well, this would be better for Cromwell doing this, or this, or Roxburgh. So a lot of ways it could strengthen the council knowledge because you're getting it from a not attached. Because sometimes Clyde and Alexandra and Cromwell can get too close to some of their decision making or silos. But if anyone else, anything else, I'll move the recommendations. A, B, and C.
Where are we? Ones are we looking at? Recommendation.
Report delegation of the community boards. 24.1.2 receives report and notes letters and evidence notes ability of many other community boards to make submission of proposed changes in manual delegations regarding delegations of community boards. Notes that written submissions need to be made to the governance manager by the 11th of February 2024. I'll move A, B, and C.
Well, Steve, move that quite a second, please. In a second. Thank you, Hal. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried, thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Next week.
Fine. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually missed the last meeting, which is always a disappointment to me, particularly when it's the December one. But the one thing I'll note from that is what a great time I had at the 125th celebration, like everyone else involved. I didn't get, I had other things across the district that dragged me away from the gala event in the evening, although I understand council was very well represented there. The thing that really astounded me at that 125th was actually the art exhibition at the Arts Centre, which I went along to for a look and was absolutely transfixed at the quality of the artwork that was in there. And I tend to, you know, I haven't got an artistic bone in my body, but I don't know much about it, but I know what I like, and I liked everything there. There wasn't a single weak piece, and I said to the people there, I thought it could stand up in any city gallery anywhere. And I think you've got a bit of a thing going on out here where you've got some really, really clever, talented people who are bringing everyone else up with them. And the only comment I also made to the organisers was it was a pity it was only on for one weekend, because I would have come out specially and booked my wife the next weekend to take her to it, and I didn't have the opportunity to do that, nor tell everybody else they should come and look. It was just superb. As I alluded to in the last report, and I'll use my report, it's probably not the right way to go about things, but it does demonstrate my my desire to hear back from the boards in a better way than we do. Stu and I have got a paper coming up next week at the council meeting on the representation review. Now, I just want to be really clear of the question I'm asking here. The paper that we've got coming up is whether the questions that we're going to go out to the public with are the right questions. So I'm not wanting the answer to the question, but what I want from the board is to know whether the board thinks it's appropriate that the question's in there or not. So that Stu and I can say to the council next week, well, the board's okay with the question being in there, or the board thinks that it shouldn't be in there. And that's, again, this is one of those papers that it would have been better if this came through a bit more officially than this. But the representation review questionnaire that's in draft at this stage that the council needs to look at next week includes a number of questions. Should councillors be elected by ward or the whole district at large? Do we have the right number of wards, etc., etc.? The one that I want to get the view of the board on, and again, it's not the answer to the question, it's whether the question should be in there, is that there is a question on the spelling of Maniototo for the Maniototo Community Board. So we're not talking about should we change the spelling of Maniototo full stop. It's like whether or not the Maniototo Community Board's name and the Maniototo Ward's name should be changed in the spelling. It's only asking that question, and again, I'm not wanting the answer to the question, but whether or not what the board's view is of that question being in that document.
Vicky?
Yeah, I think it should be.
Yeah, that's fine. It's like you said, it's whether we ask the question. Duncan?
Yeah, it's probably no harm in asking.
But we had that come up the last meeting, didn't we?
I can recall.
You at the last meeting?
Yeah.
We asked
Community board.
whether it should be changed.
Oh, the community board meeting, not.
Council.
No.
You brought that up, Wayne?
Yeah, we brought it up.
And the council agreed to leave it as Maniototo on the electoral form, electoral. You brought it up of whether the name change should be, because at the last meeting here, we agreed to keep the name Maniototo. And then you brought it up on the governance report, whether, when we went to that, whether we should, and the council agreed to leave it the same.
I don't remember what that.
At the last meeting of the council. You asked whether we did the representation review. The representation review, should we change the name of the Maniototo? And the board recommendation, this is how it did work, to be fair, the board recommendation here was we leave it as Maniototo. The last community board meeting went to council and the council agreed to leave it the same.
Can't see it in the.
I wonder if I can comment. I
Thank
have a recollection here that Wayne and Saskia were here and informally explained the process and said that this could be a topic and asked for your informal feedback. And that's where you said, yeah, we think it should stay the same. And since then, there hasn't been a paper on it, so.
It hasn't been a paper, but it was brought up at the last council meeting.
Very much. I think that, intention was always that there's a.
Not getting ahead of, the council meeting next week. What we've been doing with our representation review is the legislation tells us that we have to, look at many communities of interest. And so that's what we've been doing. And hence the reason why we're wanting to put it into, this pre-consultation. So we've come and talked to this board informally and said, what do you reckon as a community of interest? Then we're thinking we want to go out to the community at large to say, hey, what do you think about it as another community of interest? So that's how we're working now. But that's probably pretty.
So therefore you take back, when the question was asked, you're saying you only asked that informally at the last meeting here.
And we'll inform our wider, after the pre-consultation stuff comes back.
Yeah,
But we're presenting a report to council to say, this is all the feedback we've got. What do you reckon about X, Y, Z?
so let me get this clear in my head. So you're saying that when we had the discussion here at this table, it was only informal
And part of a larger picture.
and part of a large picture. So when we brought that up at council the other day, it was only informal. So if,
Part of a larger picture.
yeah, and I just clear it. And therefore, it's going to come up in a formal document
Yes.
at the next meeting on the 31st.
Yep. To ask.
So this conversation here is informal as well.
It's in the meeting, I mean, it's
Meeting.
recorded and everything else, but it'll come up at council.
Yeah.
Whether or not council wants the question to be asked. And what I'm asking is whether or not the board thinks the council, what is the board's view on something that's peculiar to the Maniototo? So it's to get that feedback. loop.
That's a feedback. This is what we're looking for.
So it's not about the spelling, it's about
No.
whether we should be asking the question.
So where are you asking the question?
So it's the representation review that's going to go out, February?
Yeah.
February. So we have to do a representation. I probably should go back a step. We have to do a representation review every 6 years, which looks at the important questions about how we do our governance. Do we have the right number of councillors, et cetera, et cetera? And this has come up as, is this one of the questions that should be asked is the spelling of the Maniototo ward and the Maniototo community ward? What word does one now use? Correct, but I don't want to use that word because it's also, is it what the community wants? Because there'll be many. Correct will have two very clear definitions with people thinking both are correct.
So where does the question go? Because the question goes to the.
The question will go out in a survey that people can answer online, or there'll be documents at the service centre, which will have in it, as I say, do we have the right number of councillors? Should we change the number of community boards? These are all standard questions that you have to pretty much ask. And this is probably the only peculiar one, I think, outside of it. Oh, we also have to address whether we have an extra councillor in Cromwell due to population growth, whether there's better ways to deal with that.
So the one pertaining to the naming of the spelling of the Maniototo, does it go out to the whole of Central Otago?
Yes,
Right.
but in answering it, people have to log in and we will, I think I'll be correct in saying we'd have a track of where they come from geographically, you know, whether which ward they're from, or indeed whether they're from the district.
So you're asking today informally that, do we have that on an agenda? Should we ask the question, yes or no?
Well, one step removed from that, does the board, what does the board want to say that it's you as to the council when the council makes the decision?
So you want us to tell you whether you want, whether you will put the question in the questionnaire?
Yeah, what's the board's preference? Should that question be in there or not? And then that's part of the matrix that I and Stu can take back to the other 9 councillors and say, 10 councillors, and say, hey, this is what the board thought. And as I say, with this change goes through, this would be a formal process, as opposed to, it's not entirely formal, but it is within the meeting, so it is. It's sloppy is what it is, but I want to know what the board thinks before I have to sit down next week.
Stu, do you think the question should be in there?
Well, I think we were asked that question here, the last community board meeting, and we were asked at the council and our board at the time, because I did work with the school and asked several around, and no, it's a question, should it or should it be in there? At the moment, I say no.
Yeah, well, this is what we're in a democracy.
Yeah.
We're all allowed to answer the question. So to my memory, it was informally discussed that what the board thought of how it should be spelled.
Yeah.
And we thought the spelling should stay the same.
Yeah.
And that was pretty fair.
This is different
This is a
now.
different question.
The question should be asked whether it should.
Whether the question should be asked.
And I guess if that question comes up, and if, for example, and this is, I'm just taking this the next step, right? If we say, no, and we may say 2-0 or 3-1 or whatever it may be in the discussion. And then we go to an online survey where, and this is where I struggle with a lot of surveys, because all of a sudden you could have a topical issue, you could have hundreds of them, or none, then motive issue. And if the council say, no, it stays the same on the recommendation of the board, but the survey comes in saying, well, the community would rather it change.
Well, it'd be the other way around. That we'd get the results of the survey, and then the council, as always with these things, it's not a referendum or a poll. It's one of the things we have to take into account. And the things that I would be looking at, in my mind, would be if 51% of the people said the name should change, but of the 49% that said it shouldn't, or sorry, of the 51% that said it should, none of them came from the Maniototo, I'd be weighing that up. You know, it's part of the matrix that each of us in the decision-making role have to put into place. But for me, it's I'm not going to know unless we ask the question.
Yeah, and I'm saying that there's informal discussion we've had, that question's been answered, but not formally.
The question of whether or not we should change the name, not the question of whether we should ask the broader public whether we should do it.
So you're looking at when we did the hospital, that decided not to sell the farms. Community, I think it was about 56 or 57% said we should sell it. We decided not to sell it, looking at all the information we had. And when we went back to the community, it was still about the same on the decision we'd made. You've got to weigh that into fact. Like, if you get up to 65% and from the Maniototo say we want to change the name to the other spelling, then you've got to go, well, what are we going to do? Because you've got to look at businesses. We're all going to change the names. You've got to go through.
Oh, no, sorry. Need to make that really, really clear. This would make no difference for the Maniototo with 2 O's and no on top, Ekron on top. That is a matter for Land Information New Zealand and the New Zealand Geographical Board, and that is a whole other story.
Yeah.
Absolutely a whole other story. This would just be that on your agenda, it's spelled differently. On our maps, the council maps would be spelled differently. On the website, it would be spelled differently. Under no circumstances would there be any expectation whatsoever. And quite frankly, even if it went through the whole process and the Geographical Board said to, I think you change your stationery when you ran out if you wanted to. Yeah.
No, it's just what a lot of businesses say. They go, we'll work to change.
Yeah, no. Well, definitely not. Even if this went all the way through and the council decided to change the name of the Maniototo ward, change the spelling of the Maniototo ward, would not impact whatsoever on any single business. Or any map, or any street, or any sort of street names would have to be changed separately. Wouldn't do that either. Maniototo Road wouldn't change. So actually,
They get lost, huh?
the actual effect, even if the change does come in, I think is very symbolic for both sides of the discussion. But in actual relevance is bordering on irrelevant.
So do we feel the question needs to be in? Yes. Thank you.
It's not going to change much, even if it isn't. Is it?
All it is going out so that people can give their preference.
To the council documents only.
Yes.
So why well, yeah.
Well, yeah, what I was thinking is the council documents already spelling it differently now, so.
The internal emails and communications are and documents that, so you might look at, for instance, I think the LTP document when it comes out, if it talks about the Maniototo Community Board, it'll be Maniototo, the Huo's way. But if it talks about the Maniototo region, area or anything like that, it'll have the Macron, which is tad confusing.
I mean, I guess that what happens if all of a sudden the staff go, this is policy of council. Now we've got to change the Maniototo pool or the Maniototo library, and all of a sudden there's a lot of cost that comes in as a result of changing the physical on a building or the physical elsewhere. When you're facing a cost of crisis, and the community's had a lot to say about it, and you know that as much as anyone, because no doubt they tell you what they think. But if the council has still got in its electronic documents because of our formal arrangement with Mana Whenua, well, it is there anyway. So is it just...
With respect, you're jumping ahead to the next question, which is, do we change the name or not? This is asking the question, do we ask the question? It's really a big step removed. This is simply, do we ask the question in our representation review, as opposed to what is the answer to that question? And you're jumping to, if the council does decide to change the name, etc., etc., we're not anywhere near that. We're simply saying, are we going to ask a question that frankly has been, it wouldn't be a bad way to put the question to bed, would it?
Well, of course, a lot of debate. I'll give you that. That's fine. I don't think we need to decide it again, but then on money, council are doing it anyway. Our formal arrangement we have with Akaha, the council is still using that information. The way that's spelling, there's no problem with that. No problem is actually doing that. Effectively, you're asking the community board to ask whether it should go out there to reaffirm what the council or Mana Whenua's decision.
No. The question we're asking now is whether we should ask the question. I keep coming back to that you're jumping a further step ahead.
We're asking the question of the communities.
To do what's already being done.
No, it's whether the community thinks, the question is, do we think it's a good idea to ask the community whether they think it's a good idea to change the spelling of Maniototo from what it is to what some want it to be. That's how far removed away from the hot pokey end of the discussion it is.
Jesus.
So we
I'm glad I asked.
I'm not that glad now. I'm getting a headache.
Well, actually, no, look, all I'm wanting is for my own input to be able to, and obviously Stu will be there on the 31st to argue that viewpoint, but I can say that the board were not ambivalent to the question being asked, but, you know, there was quite a bit of debate about it, and a couple of yous were asked. One was a bit not too sure, and the other was no. That's kind of all I need is that, frankly. And I'm glad I've got that because I had no idea how the conversation would go. And to be fair, if I go back to the process that I want to bring in, you'd had time to think about it. You know, that's what we've been not doing well enough. And I think this debate's actually the main value of having these conversations. So there's no, I mean, that's just my interest in Monica's report and talk about Kappa Hornets Nest. That's good.
I don't need to
That's how you find out what hornets look like.
First meeting back and we've got hornets flying everywhere.
Well, I personally think that's not a bad idea to ask the question. You're going to have to get a big majority, I think, before anyone is changing them. I think you get, it all depends how, like you say, if you get 50 people from outside the area go, yes, you should change it, it automatically is going to go.
Well, I think every individual councillor will have their own way that they'll apply that to the thinking that they have to do, and that's just the way of it. I can, you know,
So in the survey of children, is there an age limit? Could you get to school and then say we want to lobby council to do it? How does the law go there?
Thanks,
well,
you.
more than I can, why don't you ask that question on Wednesday? Because it's more than I can tell you.
No, because I know.
The communication.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Like the kids at the school are probably more than happy for it to change and everything. So that could be a big influence, but you could actually have 3-1 with under 16s and you could have all the 70 and 80 and 90 and 100-year-olds going, no, we don't want to.
The survey actually require people to log in, and the reason that we do require people to log in, I'm a bit on that because I think it's a bit of a barrier to some people. I don't kind stuff logging in, but it does give us the data. I'm pretty sure of age, sex, location in terms of wards. So we would have that indication as well, which, as you know, when you're making decisions, quite helpful too, just to know, well, actually, this is finding favour with this group and not with that group. So I'm pretty sure of this. But anyway, look, that was helpful.
Really?
And that absolutely. Because what have I learned? It's a hot discussion, and people are, you know, I'll tell you what, it'll be great to see how many submissions we get in if we do decide to go ahead and put it in. Everyone will cause some discussions, but that's for next Wednesday. So thank you for giving me that opportunity, Rob. Appreciate it. And realistically, unless you want to know what I did in the holidays, which is not much, that's tomorrow. I'm glad I haven't had to walk the streets, so ran thoroughly, checking that people aren't overstaying their parking.
Come back to it next
Oh,
week.
there's one street that's pretty few.
Oh dear, I'd love to see it. I wouldn't love to see what you decided to wear.
Gold bikini never turned up.
Right, Michael, move the mayor's report, please.
I'll move Mayor's report. It's been as it was.
Seconder, please.
Yeah.
Vicky, all those in favour? Aye,
Aye.
against? Very thank you. I haven't been doing too much, school holidays, it's been good. I see we're getting wastewater and pipes replaced. When are they starting? Over here, I got a map on it the other day. I see the, you got the South Road, is it?
Yeah, this I think is working through the time now and
Is that going to be done before winter, or is it a winter job? Or?
I'll double check the time.
That starts next month, right?
Yeah, February.
February.
Yeah.
Hopefully, Josh. But it's good to see stuff getting fixed. It's an ongoing thing, I suppose, in every community, pipes and breaking. I did have a discussion with Quentin about the time it takes to fix water leaks places. It seems that sometimes it takes a very long time for the contractor gets there to fix it. And in Naseby, when I talked to Quentin about this, is the council with signs up about conserving water, and here's the water from the running down the street for a week because the contractor didn't get there in time to fix it. And you're standing there for a director of the Hawkton Island irrigation company. They're going, that's our water we supply to the council. So it's just not a good look at times, but it's something we've got to probably get a finger on the pulse a bit quicker and get the contractor to fix these things within a certain time, a quicker time. It's just not a good look. The willow trees you noticed in the Lions Park got removed. I only had one gentleman ring me about it, complaining that we hadn't gone to the community and consulted about removing it. And I explained to him that you can't consult about everything. We're elected to make decisions at times that have to be made. It was in the power lines. It was past its use by date. Will be another tree planted. And all that. I said, if we consulted on everything, we'd never get the thing done. So that's gone. That's quite good. I think the Lions wanted it to go anyway because they want to plant something else there or do something else. Good. Good quick job. And that's right. A few discussions about people about roads, potholes, brooms, etc. Corrugations. Unfortunately, this conditions we're in with the dry, hard roads, things are very hard to do. It's actually at the stage, you think that the graders will just about get pulled from the road because they're not actually not doing anything. It's just dust they're getting into. Grader blades will only be lasting a week if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Bouncing around some of this stuff. I must admit I was up the Danzy's Pass and I was quite impressed how good the road was going up this side of the Dancy Pass. And I got on the other side and I couldn't believe how bad it was.
It's cool, isn't it? Awful.
I couldn't believe it.
Take this on.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Well, again, well, I know one guy who's over there, he's got a farm over there and he went back around the house. He was in full
You
drive.
need to probably notify them. They must know the grade have been over there before Christmas. Before.
That's terrible. But this side, I thought was actually exceptional. The broom is starting to get away a bit in the process. But I suppose that's a cost thing that we've got to look at about how we spray it, how effectively we do it. NIC have got their meeting tonight. Stu's going. We'll talk about that. The Turihura pool is finally, I'll use the word finished. But they can't fill it with water, but something else to do with the chlorine not going in the pipes or something. But it's all covered. I was quite surprised it's actually is it opaque, the right word? It's not clear.
Yeah.
It's I think I thought it'd be quite clear to let the water in, to let the heat in. Not, you going to talk about the school turf, Becky?
No, you go for it.
I don't know much about it because you're the one having the meetings. So talking to Susan Finley about being able to grant money, is that the correct word? The turf and public consultations and getting it in the LTP, which will be 1st of June or 1st of July.
Maybe yet September, actually. We haven't made a decision on that, but the government's given an extra 3 months due to the three waters, and we may well take advantage of that.
So if we want to put a sum of money into this turf, do we put it as a grant? Is that the wrong word?
It'll be, well, yeah, I guess it'll be a grant, it will be done in terms of a loan paid back through, right?
So it's a process we're going to have to start pretty soon.
Yeah.
That's, we can't sit back and.
That's your job though.
But,
Susan's getting the long term.
yeah, do we have to? She was talking about public consultation.
How much money you need?
Well, we don't know. We don't know how much they're going to be able to get because if they go to the bigger grants, the bigger community grant process, they won't give out any money until they've got all their money away. So you've got to have, is that correct?
Well, they want to see what your plan is.
Yes. So they've got to have a plan and they'll have to know from us how much money we put into it.
You need to come up with a number.
Yeah.
You need to,
Well, we discussed a number, but wasn't. Yeah, you weren't allowed to tell anyone.
gotcha,
Is
okay.
that what we're saying?
It's gonna be hard to consult on it if we're not gonna tell anyone.
Yeah, like we couldn't just say we want to give the turf people this much money.
Yeah.
We've got to work out how much we can give them before we
Yeah,
say.
And it is tricky because you're going to have community funding in our education system.
Yeah, but it's getting used by the public. It's a
Yeah.
community hub. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Because already the rugby club have put money into the gym.
Question to go back to Wayne. Can you tell us how much of the debt has been paid off from the Maniototo Hospital out of our farm, please? When we get to that, I had a look at it the other day. It's a fair bit paid back. We get back to Susan because the other options that we have got a loan agreement with the council paid back from our farm, that some of that principal that's been repaid could be repaid across.
Yeah, well, Susan was talking about that.
Oh, right,
It was I imagine she's got enough to do with that.
but that's the problem. Is we want to get it on the long-term plan, so we've got some insurance.
So what I'm getting is, when do we have to get it on the long-term plan by?
Well, this next round.
So it starts in first of July. Do we have to have it in there by then so we can say to the
If you
turf
want the
people?
money, you want the money in that financial year, you do, unless you're flagging it as a plan for a plan. And consulting all of the community support it in principle.
Yeah,
Because normally what would happen is you go, well, I'm not familiar with this, and that'll hear the comment, but you have a pot that you receive from external funders and if it's the school, obviously the ministry and often the council will fill the gap rather than be but I'm not sure how exactly this is going to work.
Yeah, so the board's given us guidance on how much you want to go towards the turf. What is part of the LTP.
that was there. Informally, we spoke about.
Yeah,
I
that's
think-
right. Yeah, and then that'll obviously go into the consultation document for the upcoming LTP. and then go through from there. So essentially I guess the earliest you could start is the 1st of July.
What I mean, when could we give them the money when we grant the money? What date?
From the 1st of July.
That's part of the long-term plan.
Yeah, part of the long-term plan.
So you've indicated a funding amount to go into the process.
Yeah.
So that's the first tick.
Yep.
And then the second part is that working through the LTP process, and if that is approved through that process, then the funding becomes available 1 July.
And Susan was talking about public consultation.
Yep.
What,
That's part of the LPP.
Yeah.
right, they're going to have.
Yeah, so that goes out in May.
Yep.
So, and that's all concluded by 1 July.
So the education board, are they putting money in or are they completely out of it now?
That is the lot, that's what they've got to work out, because if they go through the education board, there's so many rules and regulations that they have to go by. Or do they go separate? So last I heard that they were still dealing with their project manager through the education department, whatever, and just working out what the best way to go about that, because yes, they applied to the Otago community
Yes.
and they got, oh, we can't do anything until you've got this plan sorted and whatever. So I will touch base with Craig and has he got a hold of you yet?
No, yes,
Yeah.
not since we caught
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if too much has changed. But like in summary, you have the overall plan, like
Hmm.
you know, whatever the total amount is, and then you break it down to how that total amount's going to be funded, and then you go to each of the funders and ask each case sort of thing. Yeah, and so I think that's probably the point they're at right now, is understanding the total amount to be able to present to funders.
The other question I got is, can we go to this committee and say, we will put money in?
You could say you're going to consult on it through the LTP, but you haven't got the money until it goes through in the LTP. So, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And that's where that comes up in the LTP. It'll come up as a cost of the Maniototo Community Board.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about delegation. The council will be able to say, yeah, that's a good idea because we haven't put money into Maniototo. Hey?
Oh, that's right.
And then, and Maniototo Community Board and council, that's good because, you know, TVEC might have money for their pool and we haven't had money. So in a lot of ways, by doing what we've just done, it makes that easier.
So we get more money.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's,
But the other way of looking at it is, now that we don't have cash reserves, we have to go and take that into account when we look at how much we're borrowing. And if we've got 4 boards going, we're going to do this. But nobody on the top going, well, hang on, we can't afford what all 4 of you want to do. That's what I'm back on.
But just
We just plan it.
Oh, yeah. If the LTP is made until September, it'll be September. That was the date. So like if it was later.
Oh, so, yeah,
So
okay.
if the
The council
LTP,
needs to make a decision on that.
yeah, if it was later, then the money would be available later.
Right.
That makes sense.
So I'm putting down a turf will be a summer job.
Yeah, we've learned that one recently.
Particularly in the Maniototo. Something to do in the winter.
well,
So do it when you have a frost in January.
yeah, across there, right?
Yeah, okay, no, thank you for that. That clears a few bits up. Good thing you're here, David. How are the pool hours going at the swimming pool here? Is everything working
Yeah,
all right?
good. Yeah, I was actually looking and admissions have been up this year, so that was good, you know. And I think as well, we've been 100% uptime from the hours that we put in. We haven't had any staff outages and stuff, which has been good. Just I think something to note that Becky may bring up in your report as well is that we are going to go down a couple of lifeguards, so we may have to adjust the pool hours come sort of middle of Feb, potentially close 1 or 2 days. But apart from that, some good positive changes, I think.
No, glad. It's obviously working all right.
Yep.
Very good. And that's me. Just like to move that report be accepted. Stu Duncan, all those in favour? Aye, yeah, very thank you. Who wants to go first?
Me.
Becky.
Hey, I've had some interesting feedback from the future leaders of our area. So these were things for Ideas for rainfall for the next 25 years by the year 7, 8 students at Maniototo Area School. It's a very interesting reading in here if you want to do that. But generally, the feedback that they were saying was they want the inflatable dino back at the pool as a big one. Better sports grounds, more housing, a Mariah, sections in the area, more shopping, things like that. It's a really interesting reading because one of them said, you know, another 25 years they're going to be 37, and that is, you know, the people that could be living here. So that was quite entertaining, that reading. So I had to bring that in for you all to just read some light reading if you want to read that. So it was really cool. Summer's been good. It's been really busy. Rail Trail, the Motorhome Association that we've parked down there is huge at the moment. Still lots of people around. So we've got a new shop that's just opened up down the main street this week. So that looks great down there. The street sweeper, any ideas when that's gonna come through again? Is it like scheduled for?
They do rotate on it.
They do.
It's the old,
Oh,
it is.
That'd be cool, just with the wind and stuff, it's buying a whole lot of stuff down the street. So someone just said the other day about, when's that coming? When or how do we go about a project that's been brought to my attention about putting a mountain bike BMX track area behind the main street? So you've got the main street, the rail trail. Who owns that land between the dock, the whole lot? Yeah. So how would you go about, or who would you go to in regards of?
We can have a chat.
You like chatting to me. Just another week project that we might have.
To the right people.
Yeah, there's just, you know, I know there's lots of little places. Matato's got a really cool one, and Marama, Twice, or BMX tracks, pump tracks for the kids, big kids, whatever. So, yeah, whether we need to get an organisation to take that on, like the Maniototo mountain bikers, are quite keen to be involved to create an area. So, yeah, just wanted to know about the land on that. And also just before, the Green Bridge at Wakiata, are the milk tankers allowed to go over that?
Only if they haven't got an H sticker.
A milk tanker, would it
If
have
they
it?
haven't got, if they've got an H sticker on their truck, they can't go over.
They come in empty, they probably can.
Yeah, but I think you'll find if you've got an H sticker, they can't go over it regardless.
It's over, when it's over a real high trigger weight, which is the H stickers over a certain tonnage.
Okay,
No, but some of the smaller tankers without the H absolutely can.
that's right.
So if you see a full tanker, and it's got a yellow H sticker on it, it ain't allowed over,
No.
because they'll be running at
I got 15. Yeah. it's not-
Why they went back over the bank
yeah,
4 months ago.
that's into the wrong place.
Yeah, the scene, you must have tried to back up to the corner. And the tank, the trailer fell over the bank. So they're not supposed to be reversing those guys anyway. So,
Because you didn't know how to reverse anyway.
there's probably quite a bit of struck.
Now, pretty like you see a truck with a yellow H sticker on it, that's loaded, they ain't not allowed over that bridge. I think it's 48 on that bridge.
That's right on. Yeah, that's pretty much me. Just, I'll do that like that.
And should be due this month or very early Feb for the street sweeping.
Perfect, thank you.
Finished?
Yep.
Thank you. Done.
I got pretty much nothing. Talking to too many people, or people haven't been pestering me. The only thing I might mention was the usual with broom, of course, on the side of the roads. Some of the roads in a couple of years we like driving down a green tunnel ones and patches. And other than that, I think the road's pretty good.
How's St John's going?
John's been, I don't want to say the Q word, but it's pretty reasonably uneventful. Although, I think last Friday, we did a job, we got sent down to McRae's because Palmerston was offline. halfway down, they called us on the radio to say that there was a second job in Macrae's. And then the radio dropped off and they tried ringing me and get a missed call on the phone when we got the hide. I rang comms. They said about the second job, but us to keep going to the first job, they were sending Mosgiel up to the second job. And in between times, they said, while you're away out of town, there's a job in Ranfurly that Alexandra are coming up to. So they picked the patient, Alex truck picked the patient up and Ranfurly took them over to the medical centre, another off back to Alex. We ended up going all the way to Dunedin because Osgill was coming up to Rose. Dunedin truck was doing the job in Wackawai. So there was 2 trucks out of the Dunedin area. We ended up going all the way to Dunedin and then we got told that there was a job waiting for us back in Ranfurly to take a patient to Dunedin. I rang them and told them we were knocking off when we got back to Ranfurly. And they had to send a pay crew up from Dunedin to do that one. So it's been reasonably quiet, but it was a bit of a nutty period last Friday.
Thank God for volunteers in St John. Absolutely. Yeah, it's not good when you have to drive, when you got to get an ambulance from Alex an hour away. If someone was dying, it's too late, isn't it?
Yeah, and even like there's 3 of us that'll do a single crew. If we're single crew, they usually send someone to back us up, and that could be Dunedin, it could be Alex, it could be Cromwell. There's a job over in that corner, and I had a Cromwell ambulance coming to back me up. And I did a job up behind this Danzy's Pass pub, and it was a hillside truck from Dunedin that came up. And one of them was not very complimentary about the roads or the distance. I explained to them it was the same distance from Dunedin to Danzy's Pass as it was from Danzy's Pass to Dunedin.
Of course you would. Of course you'd just be a annoying little chap.
His mate was laughing. Right, that's me.
Right, thank you, Duncan.
Right, now I've got heaps now. I've got a few things jogging memories. Second thing first, we were at Penguins, Dunk and I, you can't remember that. And the kids at Penguins, it's the Wee St John's, the wee ones, they had to design a town and we had to speak about governance. And they wanted a hunting and fishing shop and a warehouse. Yeah, right. So yeah, they really, and it was quite cool. You know, they wanted cemeteries close to the rest homes, and all they actually had it all sorted out and recycling this, and it was actually quite cool. So we really enjoyed it and they're only the wee midgets. But, so that was quite funny. So it's quite cool to see what that looks like and what they came to us in a board meeting a while ago. Second thing, Duncan and I were at Fire Brigade last night, and the same issues I have in ambulance are probably going to have in Fire Brigade in time. We need more recruits, and because of rules and regulation with the breathing apparatus, we haven't got enough urban members to allow that. So we're hoping if the powers that be allow us, so the rural guys to train upskill to structure, external structure fires and all that. So I guess it's a real risk for all rural communities as the volunteers are getting hammered, and the skill level required to participate in those roles of emergency services are getting written by people that possibly don't understand rural communities and how hard it is to get people. And that was even James has it last night. I was talking about that in the early days to get a senior station officer. There was so many days training and this now it's twice, 3 times as much. And so you've got young families like these are different for Duncan and I, but you're trying to juggle board of trustees and jobs and work to be a volunteer. But we are very lucky with the volunteers we have got. They're fantastic people. So, right, going back to the start, 125th went to that. It was a great night too, to be fair. It probably didn't have as big a crowd and didn't get supported by the locals as much as it could have. A lot of outsiders came and really enjoyed their night. The week later, St John's School had their race and go racing night, and it was completely full. And there were 6 people. It was at the first 2 that were at the other one, including you and Mason, Lorraine, and myself. And they had a full night rather than the other. But I'm picking there was close to 350 to 400 people went through that stadium in 2 weekends and raised a lot of money for the community. So it's good. And it was two different groups, completely different nights. But really, they probably achieved exactly the same thing, and it was great to be part of both of them. The Maniototo Christmas tree went to the launch of that. The community got involved, the trust got involved, the business group, and that was all cool. It looked pretty good. So they had an opening of that, which was good. Last weekend, yes, weekend 4 went to the opening fun day for Charki Maniototo, and it's been really good. We've done a planting on our own place of a couple of thousand plants, and they're a pretty well-oiled group. They've come in and they design all your plants. We had to fence it off and keep stock out of it. They had a very big nursery, which the community board got involved, making sure they had water that was town water supply for irrigation, was just keeping the plants going. So they sold a lot of plants and had a pretty good day. So, and the same thing, I went to Charki Maniototo at 2:30 in the afternoon, and I think I counted 8 or 10 locals that I knew the name of. The 150 people, I didn't know anyone else. So you don't realise when we put on these things that people who come into your community that you don't know who will travel for those fun days and bits and pieces. So that was really, really good actually, and they're doing a great job. And especially this year, there's been a pretty drive for those plantings and stuff they've done. Yeah, I was at, once again, like you, Tim, I went to the art. I got told at the function that I had to go and have a look at the art, and we went in on the Sunday morning, and it was amazing, isn't it? It's spectacular, the skill level. And I know someone was telling me, what's the name, Kenny, was saying that Graham Sydney came in and couldn't believe the skill level that some of the artists have got at the age and stage they're at. And at that conversation with the management of the art, there was a real appetite, and which I've been thinking a lot about, is for a men's shed, because a lot of that skill levels around, and the art is also around in crafting, and guys and elderly guys that might be on their own now. And that, when you brought that up, Rebecca, about out there, that dock buildings out the back would be a very good project for a men's shed or Alliance to run a men's shed to do that building up and actually get those old guys using their hands and get into meet and greet a lot of people. So when you saw that, and that came from the art centre, late at the art centre there, really, there's a real need for these old guys just to get out and mix and mingle. And you look at these retirement villages, a lot of those old fellas on their own then now. So that was something I think we looked at. There's a lot of our local kids in the World Junior Olympics or Youth Olympics, so they're doing really well. I think, what's the name? Dowling, Maggie got 26 or something. There's quite a lot of Central kids that have gone away. So, Central Otago's had some skillful kids, but the Winter Games have done pretty well. And I was actually having lunch with Sean Becker by chance the other day, and he was flat out training the next female Olympian ones that are going away. So it's really good. QP, how's our Maniototo water holding up? Because it's been dry, and it seems like it's been pretty good. I got asked that yesterday.
Yep. So I'm having a check with the waters team. There hasn't really been anything obviously that cropped up, and obviously some measures put in place to following different bits and pieces. But yeah, reservoir levels of.
Yeah, well, because I know at our corner, a lot of those creeks are running dry now, and the stock water in the St. Bathans and in the Maniototo now is nearly none.
But it is dry.
Yeah, and it's done exceptionally well when we're really only, the show's only a couple of weeks, so we haven't got a full reservoir and everything's running well, so that's always a good thing. Yeah, no, there's plenty of people around at the start of the rail club. It gets mixed from now on. A lot of Australians, so I guess the Kiwis are sort of not travelling so much. But it goes quiet now for the people going back to varsity and school kids going away and stuff like that. But then it gets busy again in February. But other than that, it's been pretty tough out there, farming wise, and I guess that flows through into community. And we talk about there's a lot of tension, a lot of pressure on banks. Aren't very, very happy to raise overdraft facilities. In fact, I was talking to my accountant the other day at a funeral, and part of the Ramsar, same thing really. And really, they really, he's struggling. There's a lot of pressure financially, and that always takes a toll on the community. And you hope it doesn't bubble out into the community at times. But it might be late payments, something waiting. But it's been dry, and China and the sheep market in Australia have definitely not helped us. And I'm picking the Suez Canal being another 2 weeks to take produce around the world will make the meat companies a wee bit nervous, but hopefully the Aussies have had a lot of rain and their sheep kill now going up and values are going up, and it should flow out. And it is always tricky in the Maniototo because you feel like you're on your own in here, and it hasn't rained as hot as it has, but that's farming, that's the Maniototo. But other than that, I guess we've got a very big year coming up ahead of us at council. and you will feel the effect of some of the stuff that comes out of the decisions we will make or will have to make. And I know it's not easy being a councillor or a mayor or community boards when the community come at you and putting up the rates, doing this, you're a pack of this, that, and the next things, or useless of what you do. But I don't know too many people in the groups that I kick around with at council and staff that are not trying to do the right job and the right thing. But it will be tricky for the next 18 months, trust me. And that's me.
Thank you, Stu. Can I have someone move those reports, please? Vicky, a seconder, please. Yep, I'll do it. And then help, all those in favour? Aye, against? Carried, thank you. Governance report. Ah, of course. You're normally sitting over here. Sorry, second service. Oh,
Report we received.
that one there.
I'll move the report.
That we received,
Yeah.
Stuart, seconder.
Now,
Yeah. Thank you, Hal. All those in favour? Aye, against?
carried.
Carried, thank you. I'm sorry, Wayne, I'm used to you sitting there, just like a Wayne. Sarah. Apologies, Sarah.
15th of February, that's the day after the show, isn't it?
Day after the show, yes.
Crikey.
Oh, next meeting, 15th of February, that's gonna be tough. It's your meeting, I think. Right,
I could have some instant news to report back to my show day.
right.
If you can remember it.
I thank you for your attendance and I declare your meeting closed.
Beautiful.
All right, Wayne.